He's admired by progressives and even by our present Secretary of State. But Glenn doesn't share the same feelings about Planned Parenthood founder Margret Sanger. Take a look at this clip that Burton's actually in, and we'll comment on it some more after you watch.
Well, let's go on Margret Sanger, because in the history books, this is what they say about Margret Sanger. Boy, she was a princess. She started the first birth control clinic in 1916. We're taught that she's a champion of women's reproductive rights. She coined the phrase birth control, founder of Planned Parenthood. But in infancy, the movement Sanger led was part of a radical vision for reforming the world that made common cause with the socialist and the IWW in challenging the limits of progressive reform. I don't think that goes far enough. She was, correct me if I'm wrong, trying to wipe out the, quote, Negro race. Was she not?
Yes. She starts something called the Negro Project, in which she tries to enlist black ministers and get them to go into their neighborhoods and tell black people not to reproduce, because they are, in her words, an unfit group.
Does she not, so she has these horrible ideas about Negroes, and she says, and I'm using her word, Negroes, she goes on to say, we don't want the Negro to know that we're trying to wipe them out. God forbid they catch on. But then, why does she leave the country? She leaves the country. Is she not kicked out to go over to Europe, or she goes over and she learns a more subtle way, does she not?
Yes.
Right. She goes over to Europe and she learns a more subtle way, eugenics, which is very popular, and talk just about birth control. When she first starts talking about birth control, it's because she recognizes that her overt racism can't be sold. Correct?
Yeah.
Am I wrong?
We're leaving out one really important point here.
What is that?
She gives a speech to a Klan rally in 1926.
What does she say?
Well, there is no record of what she said, but one person said it was something like, we need to get rid of these unfit people.
She was also part of this eugenics movement, which was to breed a better person, breed a better voter.
It was.
Right?
Yeah.
Which led directly, it was the American progressive eugenics movement that migrated over to Europe.
Not all progressives were involved, but many were. Henry Fairfield Osborne, Madison Grant were involved in the eugenics.
And California was involved in it big time, were they not? And they migrated the eugenics over to Europe, which there's the idea of the Aryan race and the fit society, and we'll breed the ultimate race, and led to the gas chambers.
And where does all this start and kind of catch on in Europe? Public health. They are always claiming this is in the name of public health. We have to make sure that unfit groups don't reproduce because they're damaging public health. So it's all done in the name of health care.
Margret Sanger, idolized in the public school system as telling people how to live their lives without having babies. In reality, a vicious racist.
What we see in those clips and in your question here, Margret Sanger is the founder of Planned Parenthood.
Right.
They have birth control.
Right.
And what it's being used for is to diminish the number of black Americans. She wants to reduce their numbers. She's a racist, she's a eugenicist, and that is the purpose of her movement with Planned Parenthood. It's tragic.
We know from the clips we just saw that she affiliated with the KKK. We know she talked about aborting black babies. But we don't know this from the public schools.
We don't. You're hard-pressed to find a textbook. In that clip, you have Larry Schweikart. His book, Patriots' History of the United States, is great.
Right.
Try to find another book that gives you the true story about Margret Sanger. There aren't many.
Back in a moment.